Okay, I think I have the YouTube live stream set up, so we are able to stream the webinar to
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah,
Students can
yeah.
watch.
Yeah, that's why I told to everyone to join. So you can
Great,
check it.
great,
Yes.
great.
The people are joining. Yes.
Okay, very good, very good.
Yeah, that's why I told to everyone to join. Yeah, they are connecting. So we will check
Great.
the audio, video, everything.
Okay, that's great to hear. And I think the YouTube live, from what I see, it's maybe something like 15 seconds delayed. So
Okay.
we'll still, like, I will look at the chat and review the questions, and then we can answer the questions, but they'll be maybe a little bit, few seconds, yeah, delayed from everything they hear.
Hello, Marina.
Hello, hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah,
Hi,
doing
Marina.
well. Great to meet you all.
Same here.
Hi, Marina.
Hello.
Hi, Marina. This is Neha here.
Hi, Dr. Naya. Nice to meet you.
It's 22.
Marina, we would be starting, I'll be just welcoming the participants as and when they are joining. And then Dr. Sangeeta Jain, she is the director of GSIMR. She would be addressing about the college, how this institute is and all. And then we will move ahead with the introduction of conference by Dr. Shweta Sharma. And then I'll be introducing you. You will be coming on the dais and you will be taking the session, answering the queries. And at the end, Dr. Neha Modi would be delivering official vote of thanks.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good. That's a great plan. Thank you. Yeah.
श्वेता मैडम आप भी एक बार और नेहा मैडम आप भी माइक और स्पीकर चेक कर लीजिए एक बार कुछ बोलेंगे तो
Yes, I'm audible now.
यस
Hmm.
नेहा
Yes, yes, Shweta ma'am, you are audible. Sangeeta ma'am, you are audible as well.
तो हमें ऑडियंस कैसे समझ आएगी?
Ma'am, through YouTube. It's live on YouTube. You can log in on the YouTube as well.
तो हमें 2 लॉगिन करना है, राइट?
Yes, you can log in from YouTube to see how many audiences are.
नहीं, but for attending also we should go with YouTube, na?
Yes, I can also
No,
I put the YouTube link in the chat in case it's helpful, so you can see what it looks like for the public. And I can see there's like 24, 26 viewers, so that can be useful. But you can make sure to mute it so it doesn't bother you with the sound. The sound's a bit out of date with it. Yes, I think we have 1 minute until the official start time, so we're really close to getting the webinar started for everyone who's watching on YouTube live.
we will be starting sharp at 10. We'll be waiting for a couple of minutes more for the attendees.
Whatever you think is best, Dr. Shameen. I think if you feel ready to start right now, we have 31 watching, so I think we can always dive in. But if you'd like to wait, then yeah, as you prefer.
Yeah, we'll wait for one more minute
Sure.
because yeah, people may find issues in joining as well, so we can give 1 or 2 minutes extra, then we can start.
Totally. Yeah, no problem. Oh, and I also was going to record this session, so if anyone has a challenge or issue with that, let me know. Otherwise, I'll start recording the session now, so we have a recording of the whole webinar.
Yeah, sure. Let's start the session. And of course, as Marina said, we would be sharing the recordings. So those who are unable to join because of time zone differences or any other issues, they will easily get the recording. We will share the recording with all the registered participants. And to start with, I would like to introduce myself. This is Dr. Shameen Varsi. I'm associated with Govindram Saxena Institute of Management and Research as assistant professor. And today we are starting it is a first session for our upcoming conference in April. So this is the first session about literature review because every research needs a literature review. First, we need to identify the research gap and then only we can proceed ahead. So with the Association of Lit Maps, Marina is going to take this session and I'll be introducing Marina after a couple of minutes. But before that, I request our director, Dr. Sangeeta Jain, to please address a welcome note. She would be welcoming the participants as well as she would be telling about the organization GSIMR. So, ma'am, can you please
Yes.
Sangeeta ma'am, yeah, please.
Yes. Very good morning to everyone. Very good morning, Marina, and all the participants. Welcome to GSIMR. Just I would like to introduce GSIMR. It's a Govindram Saxena Institute of Management and Research in Indore. . Govindaram Saxena Institute of Management and Research, established by the Govindaram Saxena family. They established the Govindaram Saxena Technical Institute in 1956, which is popularly known as SGSITS in Indore. It's a top leading institute in
Ma'am, is there any issue?
Yeah, sorry for the interruption. There is some issues going on with internet. So yes, this institute established in 1956 SGSITS, which is popularly known as SGSITS. It is established in the heart of the city, and the same society established in 1907 Shri Govindaram Saxena Institute of Management and Research, Indore. So both of the institutes are having a good quality. Now we ranked number 4th in India, Central India, for the management education. We are running only MBA course, and for that very purpose of the research, as it shows in our name also, we are organizing a conference, and the detail of the conference will be shared by Dr. Sweta Sharma. And the team is organizing the basic objective to promote the research. The people are doing research, but ultimately the problem with the quality of research. Our focus is on the quality of research. So for quality research, the literature review or the literature is must. So how you can get the good literature, how you can review that literature for your specific research. So for that very purpose, this is the pre-conference. Our conference date is 12th April. So I would like to thank everyone who joined us, and I would like to thank Marina and welcome Marina for the session. And we are proceeding, not taking much of your time, we are proceeding further. And I request Dr. Shami to take over the mic.
Thank you, Dr. Sangeeta. I request now Dr. Shweta Sharma to please briefly introduce about our conference so that we can proceed with the session.
Yes. A very warm welcome to one and all present over here. At GSIMR, we are dedicated to fostering research and innovation in the management domain. And after the tremendous success of the last year's International Management Learning and Development Program, we are delighted to continue this legacy by organizing an online international conference this time on the theme, The New World of Work, Multidisciplinary Perspectives. The conference will held on April 12, 2025. And in addition to the main conference, we are also organizing 2 pre-conference workshops to enhance the research skill to our participants. Well, the first one is the LitMaps workshop that is focusing on research discovery and tracking tools to streamline literature review. And the second workshop would be organized in collaboration with Turnitin, that is providing insights into plagiarism prevention and best practices for maintaining academic integrity. So as part of the main conference, we will be running 7 tracks covering a wide range of contemporary topics from all the domains of management. Furthermore, the main attraction is that selected papers will have this prestigious opportunity to be published in ABDC and UGC index journals, offering global exposure to high quality research. And here, there are some important dates that you should keep in your mind for being part of the conference. So that is the first, the pre-conference workshop by LitMaps, that is today, 5th of February. Then the last date for submission of abstract, it would be 24th of February. Notification of acceptance of abstract 3rd March. Pre-conference workshop by Turnitin, it would be 4th March. And then the last date to submit camera ready paper would be 25th March. We'll be sharing the detailed brochure after this session in the group, so you can have a glimpse of that. So we'll be sharing each and everything, and stay tuned for further updates. And without further delay, I invite Dr. Shamin Varsi to take the session forward. Over to you, Shamin.
Thank you so much, Shweta ma'am. Like the wait is over. Everybody is waiting to listen Marina and get the insights about the lit maps. So before handing over to Marina, I would like to briefly introduce her, as she is a science communicator and a marketing manager at Lit Maps. She focuses on expanding the platform's reach and enhancing its utility, especially for researchers. So, with expertise in research tools and scholarly communication, she helped academics and professionals leverage lit maps for effective literature discovery and tracking. So, in this session, she will demonstrate how to use lit maps effectively to streamline the research workflows and come up with quality research. So, I would like to hand over to Marina. Everybody stay tuned as she'll be addressing the queries as well. You can post your questions on the YouTube chat box. So if you and you can connect us as well in the group. The participants WhatsApp group is there. If you have any questions you would like to ask to Marina, you can let us know as well. We will communicate. So over to you, Marina. Once again, welcome to this session.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shamin, and thank you all for your introductions. And it sounds like a very exciting conference coming up, and we're really glad to get to support by having some literature review presentation and information about lit maps, which hopefully can help you with this upcoming conference and any research you're working on. I'll go ahead and share my screen for the presentation. Great. So here we go. Yeah, for this presentation, I'm going to dive into how to use lit maps for your literature review, but I will also really discuss literature review briefly, like give it a brief overview of what that process looks like and why it's important for the research. So although we're mainly talking about lit maps, it's also in the context of the bigger picture, like why and how do we do literature reviews. So today we'll dive into, firstly, what is lit maps? So in case you have never heard of the tool yet, give a brief overview of what exactly is this tool, and then go over the top level steps in the literature review process, how to use lit maps in this process, and then I can talk a little bit about Lit Maps Pro, the premium version, and some available discounts for this. It is a freemium tool, so we have a free and a paid, so don't worry if it's already sounds terrible that it's paid. There's also the free version, of course, but there's some great discounts to be available for the pro. And then for questions at the end, and as we mentioned, yeah, definitely feel free to post in the YouTube live chat, whether it's questions or comments. It's very interesting for me to see that. So diving into what is Lit Maps. We're an online freemium tool, which means we have like an anonymous version. You don't even have to have an account. We have a free version where you can have an account and do a lot for free, and the paid version, as well as team licenses. Sometimes we work with a whole university to provide lit maps. But mainly what lit maps does is help you search for articles. So when you're exploring scientific research, discovering literature, and doing that more efficiently than just looking through really long lists, but instead using visual literature maps in order to make connections, as well as to visualize your entire research project. And of course, to share that work. So easily sharing maps, sharing papers, and so on. So there's a lot of tools available now. I'm sure many of you are using a lot of cool tools. Everyone is aware of maybe things like ChatGPT and NotebookLM, lots of generative AI tools, even tools like Consensus and Cite, Elicit, connected papers. There's many tools available today, and hopefully you're all experimenting and having a really great time with that. But to separate lit maps from every other tool, it's the only tool that is doing a whole combination of things at the same time. And in particular, that means helping you. Oh, I'm sorry, I have a fire alarm. Give me one moment. Okay, sorry about the loud noise. Hopefully that didn't disrupt you. But yes, so Lit Maps is the only tool that is doing all of these things simultaneously, which means helping you search for articles, visualize literature, and kind of search in a really targeted way. So instead of just getting back a set of papers, you really interact with the search process. You curate your set of articles. You can use advanced filters. And we'll see why that's important later, as well as creating visualizations and staying up to date. So it's the only tool that's doing all of these things at the same time. So all the other tools are maybe more useful for you at different parts of the process. If you're wanting to do lots of different stuff for your literature review at the same time, this might be a good tool for you. How does LitMaps work? We use what's called a citation network. So many tools today, you can think of, say, database lookup tools, something like Google Scholar, PubMed, Scopus, Web of Science. These tools, you'll type in your research topic and get back a list of papers. These are really useful, and they're different, right? Because you're just typing in some words and getting back all the relevant papers. And sometimes you get thousands or tens of thousands of papers. It's a lot. On the other hand, you maybe have a tool like Elicit, Cite, Consensus, where you type in a research question and you also get back papers, but it's from AI. So the process of how that's done is usually based on looking at the text of maybe abstracts or papers, text similarity. This is two different things, and we kind of exist in our own world. So we are searching not on either of these in particular, although we do use database lookup like in Google Scholar, but we also use a citation network. So that means looking at the article that you're interested in or the topic you're interested in and seeing how all the literature is connected in this topic. And because we know how interconnected work is, we can return the most relevant articles and help you expand your search and hone in on a topic more effectively. Great, and thank you so much for the questions coming in already. I'll definitely dive into those at the end. So this is an example of what the LitMaps method looks like. On the left-hand side, there's this giant citation network. The citation network itself can have hundreds of thousands, millions of connections and papers, but you don't need all of that, right? You just need to look at, oh, this one paper or your 10, 20, 100 relevant papers, and how are they interconnected? And the most important ones, the most relevant ones to your niche, that's the ones you want to be looking at to start your research. And that's all this is indicating. We're really zooming in on the most relevant part of that citation network. Another thing to point out is how does LitMaps get you your papers? So this also is a good thing to look at if you're using these database tools. Again, Scopus, Google Scholar. Every single database tool is getting papers in a slightly different way. So the main way we get our papers, and this is actually similar to a lot of other AI tools, especially things like, I have them here, even Consensus, Connected Papers, Elicit. All these tools use a database called Semantic Scholar because it's available, it's open data, and it has all the papers that have open access metadata. So that doesn't mean the papers are all full available, but it does mean we know their title, their abstracts, journal, and authors, and this information. But what makes LitMaps a little bit different is we also use two additional databases called OpenAlex and Crossref, and that's why we have slightly more articles than some of these other tools. But the majority of the tools you'll probably be using are using Semantic Scholar, unless you're going to something like, say, Scopus, Web of Science, these other things, they're sourcing in a different way and based on specific journal connections. But what this means is largely peer-reviewed academic articles, as well as some preprints and book chapters, things like that, but a lot of peer-reviewed research. And here's a note on coverage, because certainly we can maybe have different domains present here. You have different research topics. So what research topics you're working on, you will wonder, well, based on the tool I'm using, does that database have good coverage? And that's a really good thing to check, because you might be diving into a database and looking for your topic and there's no research on this topic, but actually that database might not be a good resource for your research if it doesn't have the correct data source. So it's a good thing to note that Semantic Scholar itself, that's our source database, it has a really wide range of disciplines covered. And in this one research paper, it found it was second best in terms of dispersed coverage. So it's covering a lot of domains. That doesn't mean it necessarily has all the papers on your topic, but it's a good indicator that depending whatever field you're in, to still try and use these tools to experiment and see if they're giving you the results you need. Oh, and finally, just a side note here, LitMaps is also useful for sharing research. So most of the presentation, I won't talk about that, but it's nice to just mention at the beginning that everything we're doing here, we can share really easily. So people may share their literature maps through their own personal sites or their, like this is kind of a research website, maybe in their research papers. You can also include a LitMap. So as like, here's my literature review, here's the map visualizing that review. And we can even include them as figures, so as images. And I will also talk a little bit about how to make these figures really detailed and annotated to really make your research story clear using the visual literature map. And if you indeed end up using LitMaps in the research article, that's wonderful. You can publish with LitMaps, you can do all these things. We are really open to that. But you're going to want to reference it like you reference other tools. So if you use ChatGPT, for example, this is often how people are referencing it, something like this. So just mentioning the tool, often mentioning that version. So depending the last day the app was released, it's a good practice because then it makes it more reproducible, right? If someone down the line needs to reproduce, they can actually try to access it at this time. Yes, these are the different methods of sharing. And yes, a side note here as well, sometimes in the research paper, this is true for all the tools that you use, you might mention, oh, I searched for articles using these 3 databases. This is my search methodology. Some researchers will also go ahead and explain the algorithms that are being used, especially if it's not a normal database. If it's a tool like ours, we have an algorithm happening and we have all the information public as to how those operate. So if you just Google how do the LitMaps algorithms work, you will see the very detailed guide of this, and you can just see, oh, okay, that's how it works. And then you can just put it into the paper if the publication you're doing asks for that kind of information. Okay, so I can maybe check really quick on the YouTube Live to see if there's any questions that I could do right now. Otherwise, I'll save most of them for the end, but maybe to break it up a bit, I can look really briefly. Because there are some great questions that are very relevant to what I just discussed here. Someone is asking, Pratham asks, what is the citation network? So that's a really great question. And so maybe I'll review that and then we'll dive into the next section. So just checking back in again, what is the citation network? Because this can be something that if we are new to research and we're not yet familiar with literature, it can be a big thing to understand and also complex to understand how LitMaps uses it. So the citation network, it refers to how all articles cite one another. So for any published work, when you write this paper, you're going to reference other papers, right? You might reference 10 other papers. That's this paper's references. That's the term we use. And then once your article gets published and people really like it, and of course they're going to love it, and in a few years, you'll generate your own citations. So those papers will reference your paper, and these become your citations. So it's the 2 different words for what is the same thing. References are the things this paper has in it, and citations are other people talking about this paper. And in this way, almost all literature is in a sense connected through these references and citations. And that's all the citation network is. It just refers to the fact that, hey, these are all connected through references and citations. This is a giant network. And there are actually various tools and methods that people use this network in order to discover literature. So for many of the people here today, when they were doing research 5 or 10 years ago, you would do this manually. You would look at a paper, look at all of its references, read each one, or see if it's relevant, and do this over and over and over, or use a special software to see the paper citations and track that. And people still do that today. But the whole idea of a tool like LitMaps is we can look at this big network, and instead of making you look through everything, we will automate this search in a specific way and find the most interconnected papers based on this network. And that's all it is to deal with the citation network. Okay, now I'll hop into the next section, which is a literature review overview. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dr.
Marina, there is one more question in the chat box. Somebody, Meher Nawaz has asked, what is the difference between thesis and article?
Yes, very good question. So I pretty much use article personally to refer to almost all research papers. It can even be something like sometimes you'll find a patent, you might find a book chapter. There's many different kinds of research, pieces of research. But I think the thesis is actually quite distinct. And the reason is because you're not often going to find it in these databases. So, right, a master's thesis and a PhD thesis, perhaps it's different in different countries or something, or different venues, but in general, for example, at least here and in many places, you will submit this thesis to your university, but it will not necessarily be, as it is, published in any journal, right? So instead, people will take that thesis, they might publish independently in other journals. And that's actually why that distinction matters, because here, when you're discovering literature, you're going to find papers published in journals, mostly. That's most of what you're looking at in this product, in LitMaps and in tools like LitMaps, as well as, like I mentioned, book chapters and things like that, research, like published research in books and things. But that's the main difference. So a thesis, right, it's going to be harder to find, say, on places like the internet or places like LitMaps, whereas the research articles, that refers to the articles you're kind of discovering in these tools, which are usually peer-reviewed publications. So I do find it, yeah, even interesting in a sense, because in a way, a thesis is kind of peer-reviewed, right? You have your committee, someone's reviewing it, like it is a reviewed, wonderful thing to publish, but because it's not going through the journals, we just don't have access to it. And this is the main difference. So, but perhaps it's also depending on where you are. But I would say this is, from what I understand, the core difference between these two things. And at least as it pertains to using LitMaps, for sure. Great. If there's nothing else for now, we'll jump on to...
No, Marina, there are two more questions.
Oh, sure.
People are more anxious to ask. So you want me to read? Yeah, you can see that. Someone is asking that ChatGPT is not allowed in their organization, so as if they cite LitMaps. So will that work? I mean, is it the same AI thing?
Yeah, very good question. Yes, as universities create new policies, that's a really great thing to look. So no, this is thankfully a very different tool. And as I mentioned, if we can always, and I'll talk about the algorithms in more detail, of course, but if we ever look up LitMaps algorithms, we'll see they are, in a sense, very clear algorithms. So usually when the university is not allowing ChatGPT, right? Because it's a text generative large language model. So it's like a whole world, right? You type in this text, you get text back. It's a really different thing. LitMaps itself, it's a lot more like a search database. So in the same way the university would support you using PubMed or Google Scholar or any of these search databases, it's way more in that field. However, the results you still get, you want to understand the algorithm that is used. And yeah, and so that's why it's still important to understand that. But I don't think these policies, they're just not relevant to us. So you can still check what other things the university says or the journal says in terms of what tools you can and can't use. But we were what we can consider a citation finder, a reference finder, a search database. And actually the core algorithm of LitMaps doesn't use AI, right? It's a finite thing. We know this paper has 400 citations and references. These are the 12 most interconnected ones. This is like a very clear algorithm. So it's not, yeah, it's not in the same camp as these other things that we are still trying to understand in research. And then I do see the last question about, does the citation network shows research area concentration? For this question, okay, maybe we can do these two and then I can continue on. Otherwise, I think we will not get so far. But does the citation network show research areas concentration? So what we're asking here is, like, if I'm looking at all these clusters of papers, can I see groups of papers corresponding to the different research topics? I would say yes, absolutely. But as we're going to see in LitMaps, that's not exactly, it's not going to look exactly like that, but in a sense, yes. So it might be easier when I go to show you the tool. Yeah, so I think for what you're asking specifically, this is something you curate. So as you discover literature in LitMaps, you can annotate it. You can use this to search and develop a visual map of your research. And then sometimes I might have a map where I've visually clustered this topic and this topic, or I've annotated different papers based on their topics, and I can then see how these topics interact. So I think the answer is yes, but it's something that we develop using LitMaps. It's not something that just can be generated for us automatically. And the last question here is, what is the difference between thesis and dissertation? So that's a great question. This is a bit outside the scope of litmaps. Yeah, I don't really know what the answer is. I think maybe one of the other amazing researchers maybe wants to chime in. Because for me, I think they're pretty interchangeable. Maybe dissertation is just for PhD, thesis can be master's or PhD. But what do you think, Dr. Shamin? Sorry, yeah, I don't know here. If anyone has some idea. But, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like agree with you. Actually, these are two interchangeable words. Like in dissertation, we use for like another word for thesis and for PhD. So I think they are interchangeable.
Mm. Okay, thank you, Dr. Shveta. Yeah, that makes sense. I think so too. Sometimes then it's like, oh wait, but is there a difference? Maybe I think not so much usually. Thank you. Great. Then I'll continue on and we'll just touch on literature review and a bit about litmaps, and then we'll hopefully have time for lots of these other very nice questions you guys are bringing up. So just to dive into literature review, there's several steps here that we can go through. So this might be familiar, but just to give a brief rundown, we want to define what is the question or the topic. This is always the first step because otherwise we don't really know what to look for. And of course, making it as narrow as possible, as specific as possible is ideal. Looking for the literature on the topic in order to answer this question. Evaluating the sources. So every time we're finding a paper, is this paper actually relevant to my topic? Can I trust it? Is it reliable? This is the questions we ask when we find a paper. Reading and analyzing papers. So reviewing the data, reviewing the paper content, taking notes, keeping organized. As you build your literature review, you might have tens or hundreds of papers. How do we not get lost in this, and how do we keep it all well organized so later when we go to write, we can keep track of it all? And finally, to cite and reference it appropriately. So these steps are all pretty essential, but they also are not exactly linear. Although the research question and topic is often the first thing, that's the most consistent thing. Everything else can happen almost at any time. And we do it in a kind of a loop, and you can jump between these steps. And sometimes as you're searching for literature, you might hone in on your topic. So there's a lot of interaction between these different stages. And this is the steps that Litmaps tries to help you address and help support you in. So of course, finding literature, also evaluating sources, seeing what is relevant, what's not, staying organized, keeping track of papers, and even with citing and referencing. So when it comes to using Litmaps for literature review, there's these three general big picture steps we can look at, and I can walk you through each one and what that looks like. So the first is just to start a literature review. So if you're starting from scratch, you're just having some question or topic idea and diving in. How do I do that with Litmaps? That's the first step. The second is doing a more comprehensive search. So you've dived into your topic, you've learned a bit, you've collected some papers. Now, how do you really make a more intense search? How do you really say at the end to your colleague or your supervisor, I've really finished this review and I've really made a great analysis of the field. So that's making it comprehensive. And lastly, organizing and citing the review. So yeah, how do I put it all together into one actionable piece of information? So when it comes to starting the review, we often have a few key challenges. It's very overwhelming, especially if you are a bit newer to research, or in general, even sometimes for anyone, when we're looking at the amount of literature out there, it's actually a very big process. It's still a big job, even with automated tools. And it's a lot of information overload, of course. And when you're learning into a very new field, it's really unclear how the different subtopics connect, what's important, what's not. This is all really challenging. So to handle being overwhelmed, we can recommend a much simpler search strategy. So instead of trying to balance all these different tabs and all these different search databases, just trying to funnel into one simple strategy of how to search using Litmaps. And to avoid the information overload, we want to find the most relevant papers first. We don't need to spend time reading something that's not super relevant. We want to find what should I be reading right now. And to see how everything connects, that's naturally the job of the literature map. It should visualize this. It shows you how are these different topics connected? What does this paper mean in its field, and so on. So here's a walkthrough of how we would just start a literature review from scratch in LitMaps. And so all it is searching for the research topic. In this example, I did biodiversity and monoculture carbon sequestration forest. So this is actually just some keywords. It's not the whole question, but keywords around my topic. I'm in LitMaps. I search for it, hit enter, select a paper that seems relevant based on the title and abstract, and then I click explore related articles to generate its litmap. And this is all the first steps. So this I can also show in a demo at the end if there's time. But in a sense, all it is saying, let me search for that topic. Let me select one paper is enough. I can select more than one if they're relevant. And I've already created a litmap showing me how are they connected to the local citation network. So I'm already finding relevant literature on my topic. And so what the resulting litmap looks like is something like this. The starting article is the dark dot. That's the original article. Say we look up the thing, we find one paper. That's the starting paper. And these white dots around it, these are recommendations, or these are the suggested articles based on the citation network. So these are going to be not just like the top citations, but they're the most interconnected. So in this example, it actually doesn't have it, but often you'll see lines connected to one another. So these papers will be all interconnected, not just to the single paper alone. And if you have multiple inputs, they will all be mixed together because it's going to be really relevant to both or all the multiple inputs you're looking at. And also by default, the visualization is sorted based on the date of publication along the x-axis and the citation count along the y-axis. And that we'll get into that, but that can help you spot, again, those important articles as quickly as possible. So if you're diving into a field for the very first time, we actually want to probably look at something with a higher citation count and maybe even something a bit older, right? Because this is going to be the more historic paper that was really important at the time and maybe set a precedent for the field. And we want to first get an overview. And once we have an overview, then maybe we can dive into the more recent work, so that looking along the x-axis to more recently published literature. Yes, and as a part of the simple search strategy, as we're discovering literature, we can always keep track of it very quickly and easily with bitmaps by tagging things. So that means as I find something, I'm like, oh, great, that seems relevant. I can quickly make an identifier or like say on the subtopic or even a note, whatever makes sense, and tag it with this like color or this title. And that helps me to like already from the very first step, I'm already curating my set of literature. And later on, we'll show how do I bring that literature map to life. And if we start tagging early, we will make it look really, it'll look very useful from the very start because I can see already, this is how my subtopics are being connected. And here's the example I mentioned just a second ago about when we're diving in, we often might be look for this seminal work. So seminal work, some high impact paper that was really important. And as I can see here on my map, my input paper was 2016 paper. And the paper at the top of the map, that's the one that has the highest citations, is a 2015 paper. So it's a bit older, right? But because it has 2,000 citations, clearly it's something I should read if I'm going to be in this field, or I should at least know about it. And it's a good place for me to start if I'm brand new. And then it also is worth noting, all maps tend to have this look where they all look on a diagonal, because the older the paper is, right, it has more and more citations, it has more time to grow. And the newer the paper is, it will always have less citations. It's kind of impossible not to, because it's too new. So this is a common theme you'll see, and it's a great way to quickly spot newer work, older work, and also older high impact work. And here's another thing to help us visualize these connections, which is every lit map, it's based on the input articles. So in this very first flow, I take this idea, my topic, I find my first article, and I generate its lit map. But I might find other articles or have multiple inputs, and I'm always changing the map. And what I can do is use the different articles as an input to see research from a different angle. So in this example on the left, this article is the input to the map, it's the green one, and everything is a recommendation. And on the right, it's another map where another article is the seed, and I see this article as a connection. So what this is indicating is if you find another article, say a suggested article on a map, and you're like, oh, that's relevant to my topic. not only can I tag it or save it or add it to my map, I can create its own map. So I can click on it and say, create its own map. I want to see where it looks like in its field. We can do this for as many papers as we want to. So that actually was a quick, very quick rundown, but that's how I would recommend diving into a literature review using lit maps. And it really comes down to searching for that topic, selecting just one article, creating that first lit map. And that's it. That's the first steps, just to finding, hey, this is relevant paper. This is how it sits in the field. And already you're actually exploring the research topic, at least from this one entry point. And then, of course, curating that set of articles, saving them, tagging them, and so on. So next, we'll dive into a comprehensive search. So starting is one thing, but really getting a very big understanding of the field, making sure you didn't miss any papers, that all deals with doing a really comprehensive search. This has its own set of challenges. So it's very hard sometimes to understand if we've missed anything. You might have 200 papers on your topic, but how can we be confident that there is no important paper that's missing? You can search for these keywords, you can look in different databases, but it's really, really hard to know when you're done. And that's something that maps can also be really helpful at. Going through thousands of papers, of course, this is similar to the last one. Just going through lots of papers is hard, and getting out of date. So you've finished your literature review, you've collected 300 papers, you even submitted, you're working on the draft of your paper, but how do I know that nothing will come out that will actually be very important and relevant? That's a really great feature as well in lit maps, which is helping you stay up to date automatically. So you don't have to worry about it. You can just know, hey, there's a new paper that is really relevant on your topic. So to fix this uncertainty, that's what lit maps do based on search inputs. So I'll show you what that looks like, but you can search on the papers you have to see what is missing. You can go through a lot of papers fast by actually targeting search. So that's the next step, is using special filters and advanced search to get really focused, and getting out of date. So having alerts in place, so that way you don't need to think about it, but as you're writing your paper and you're not really doing literature review anymore, you can still get an email if something important has come out. And again, it's based on your lit map. So everything is based on the lit map, but it's doing different things for you. So how do we search on the library? Now you might be in the app and growing the library. This will happen naturally in your lit map, but you can also come from another place and say, I already have 100 articles on my topic. I want to see from this set, am I missing anything? To do that, you can import articles from anywhere. You just click import and you can drop here like a BibTeX, RIS, CSV. You can do this manual imports based on titles. So there's lots of ways to bring papers in. So you can either bring them in or curate that map within lit maps to begin with, like in the first step. And as a side note, we also can use Zotero Sync. So with Zotero, if anyone is using that, it's a free reference manager. It's an easy way to keep track of lots of papers if you have a ton of research. And that just has a nice syncing feature with lit maps as a side note. And once we have now inputted all the articles, as we can see in the image on the right here, so this is jumping ahead a bit to customizable search, but once we've inputted all these articles, automatically, we're doing the search on all these inputs. So therefore, anything in that outer ring or any recommendations we get in lit maps, these are papers that are highly interconnected to our inputs, but that we didn't have in our collection. So that's the whole nature of the lit map. That's why it's useful to see if we missed anything, because I can put it all in. I can see, yeah, look at these 15 recommendations. Maybe some of them are not relevant, but hopefully some of them are. And that's the whole goal of using the literature map to find additional literature. And as for the second stage here, this is thinking about how do I hone in deeper on the topic and not get lost in all these details. Because even at this stage here, I can see I might have 20 input papers and 10 recommendations, and it can often feel still overwhelming. Like there's just so much literature to go through. So what we can do instead is say, we don't need to go through everything. I actually have very specific goals. Like say I'm working on this topic, but I care only about recent research. So I can add a filter that says published between, and add a filter for the certain dates. How about research only 2015 and later, or 2020 and later? And I can add keywords. Keywords are important here, and it's something that's easy to overlook because usually when we're searching for research, we'll just type in the keywords and search. But here it's really special because you're already searching based on your set of papers, And these keywords are an extra layer on top. So any recommendations, they must contain this word in the title or abstract. And that helps you really focus in on a specific subtopic for your research. You can also add author filters if you know the authors in the field you want to look at, specific journals, and then even journal ranking information. So if you are not yet super familiar with the field, you don't know the authors or the journals, you can actually just try something like SJR quartiles, if that makes sense for what you're doing. But these are quartiles that divide journals based on their impact. So it's a specific calculation, and you can read about it in the app or online. But it's just saying, hey, if we look at Q1, Q2 journals, these are going to be journals that are generally high impact. They're getting more citations, and maybe that's a good place, especially when I'm starting to understand the topic or I'm just interested in these specific journals. But by default, the app will always search on all 4 of these quartiles. And H-index also refers to the impact of a journal based on citations. There's many different ways to filter, and the whole goal, just to keep it simple, just to find the most relevant papers and not spend too much time looking through stuff that isn't relevant. And the other thing we can change, which is pretty unusual in terms of apps, but litmaps can have this, which is you can change the algorithm. So I keep mentioning how we're searching using the citation network, and this is the default, and most people only ever do this. But if you want to get more advanced in litmaps, you can actually search in 2 different ways. You can also search based on authorship. So if the papers in your input set tend to have certain authors working together, you can find what other papers these authors have worked together on. That's the common authors algorithm. So it's a bit like the network. It's looking at paper connection, but looking at it from an author's perspective. And then thirdly, the similar text algorithm. This algorithm is looking at the semantic similarity of papers. So given your one input paper or many input papers, it looks at all of their abstracts and titles, what kind of text is there, and finds similar papers based on that alone. So if you want to momentarily ignore, hey, I don't care, well, who is citing who, I just want something that is similar, then similar text can be a great thing. And also can be particularly useful for papers that don't have many citations, for example. So maybe a very new paper, maybe this would be a better algorithm to use sometimes. And here are just a few examples to fly through in terms of when to use what filter. I can see it's I'm using up my time quite quick, so maybe I'll try to wrap it up. But the date filter can be useful trying to find new articles. The keyword filter, when we're looking at a subtopic or I'm in an interdisciplinary field, that can be very useful. Journal filters can be useful to find high quality work. So work that's from high impact journals, papers that you might want to start reading first just to get a quick overview. This is the paper everyone knows in the field because it's from a high impact journal. And using this similar text algorithm when I want to find work that's not directly connected to my papers. And finally, the last step here for comprehensive search is the automatic alerts. So when I mentioned, hey, you just want to get an email with any new papers, that's this. But this is a bit different than perhaps if you're using this in other softwares, because this, again, is based on your litmap. So it's the exact same process as if you went into litmaps and you ran a search every single week. That's all this is doing. It's automating that process. And additionally, you can even set advanced things on this. You could put special filters and advanced features as well on this monitoring feature. But it's a very simple process. You're just on your map and you click enable automatic monitoring and done. It will keep up to date and just email you. And you only get the email if there is a new publication. We have something like 100 to 200,000 new papers every week because these databases grow so rapidly. So you maybe don't get this email every week, but if something is relevant, you will see it here. So I know I'm running a bit short on time. Maybe I will quickly jump into the next section and then we will be able to finally wrap it up. But for the final part here, I was going to talk about organizing and citing your work. So that's just a note on that visual part of litmaps. So we talk a lot about search, but you can also use a litmap to show the literature review. Like here is a review on the topic of microplastics in marine life. It's just an example. But because the subtopics are all been tagged, we can see maybe how they interact. And that's already going to tell some research story, or perhaps in my literature review, I can discuss that. And the maps themselves can be annotated. We can add text, we can add boxes, we can add a lot of different descriptors to point out what we think is important here. We can also cite work. So you can export articles in bulk. You can export specific citations. This is an article's details in the app, and we're looking at the citation. Get the PDF for the article. So this is if it's open access or if we have the access through the institution using what is called libkey. So it depends if the institution has this, but otherwise all the OA papers at least can see their PDF. And downloading all articles. So this is on my map, just click on articles and we can automatically export all the articles easily. So usually when you go to write up your paper, you will maybe need to make a bibliography, or you might be using a software where you can directly use your BibTeX. It depends on what you're writing and how you are doing it, but this is the first place to start to pull down all the references from LibMaps. And sharing work, as I mentioned at the beginning, you can share with the pictures, with the URL, with the embedding, in many different ways, depending if you're sharing it just with your supervisor or maybe you're sharing the image in the final paper. And this is my quick suggestion to get the bibliography. So if you are really new and you're writing a paper in text editor software, then you can always take this BibTeX and put it into a software like Zotero or any free reference manager, and from here, create a bibliography. And the bibliography, right, it's that stylized thing where like every citation looks nice and stylized in the way that ideally your journal or whatever you're submitting to expects it to be in. Cool. And I had a quick section just on showing free versus pro stuff. So as I mentioned, we have free, we have pro, we have teams, we have all these different things, but the most relevant thing, especially for this audience, is we have special discount codes, which I just want to mention in case it's relevant, that if you're in the app and you click upgrade, it's important to note that everyone, based on the country, has certain discount codes, and that's true across the whole world. And so in particular for India, we are having 50% discount code. That's just important to note that sometimes you've seen these prices. This is not going to be the prices depending on the country. So this is just an important thing to note. Yeah, here we have for 50%. And another quick note, and I think this is the last slide, and then I can finally let you all breathe a bit. But this is a side note, especially if you, I guess if you want a lot more detail, you can see our YouTube channel. We have a lot of videos, but I also have what is a teaching course on LitMaps. So if you go to litmaps.com and you view the Teach with LitMaps page, this is talking about like if I was wanting to teach, say, my peers or my own students in a classroom setting about LitMaps, this is a really useful set of slides. But even if I'm just a student wanting to almost go through this all step by step as if I'm in a class, this can be a useful resource as well. So that's just a side note. However, if you prefer video to slides, then just look on the LitMaps YouTube, and there we have a lot of videos as well with specific details on different parts of the search and visualization process. This is how you access it on the website, on the About, Teach with LitMaps. Okay, I'm sorry if I was a bit rushed, and this was the end of the presentation. So now we can dive into any questions. I think, do we have like 5 minutes or so left? And yeah, I'm happy to take any of these questions. I can review them in the YouTube live chat as well. I do see a question about what's the best way to create a literature map. So yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I don't know if there's necessarily a best way, because it really depends on where you are in your research. So if you're at the very beginning, then you have to, in a sense, start from scratch, right? So you need to search for your topic and find a relevant paper and generate that article's lit map. And that lit map itself is useful for you because you're seeing this article in context. And slowly curating that and tagging it and annotating it to build out a visual literature map of everything on your topic. So I would say it's always just starting with whatever papers you have, start with those, and that will already be a useful map. So if you have 10 papers on your topic, take all of these and make a map. If you have only one, take this. Someone asked to tell where where the version converts to premium. So I think if you're talking about where to upgrade in the application, then here, this is a button in the bottom left. So you make a free account first, play around with the free account, and if you need to have an upgrade, this will be on the bottom left, upgrade to Litmaps Pro. And in terms of features, a lot of the core features like creating a map, doing searching, all of this you can do for free. The things that is not for free is Zotero Sync and targeted search filters. This is probably the most important things that are not for free, and also the limits on the number of articles and numbers of maps. But you can do quite a lot of things on the free version, and I would definitely encourage to play around on it because you can still create maps and do lots of searching as it is. PhD student, say if a PhD student ran out of time, can they write the literature part in a faster rate using AI tool, but being safe from plagiarism? I mean, this is a great question. I would say it's a bit out of scope of Litmap. So what we do is much more on the searching side. But yeah, this might be more of a big picture question, which in general, when it comes to using any of these tools, I would say the point of all these tools is to help you to accomplish anything faster. But at the end of the day, the only way to actually to finish any literature review and really know the topic is to still be familiar with the literature. So that's probably the main thing. So even if you're actually automating some of the writing process or automating any part of the process, we need to still understand these literature and the published work. And that's why, you know, even if say you have these 10 articles, you can at least still use them in a search and see what's their content and something like that. So I would say that's probably my personal advice on this question. No matter how much we're automating, we just have to at least read that papers and understand their content, because otherwise it's just unclear. Okay, great. I have 3 more here, so maybe we'll answer these and then we can wrap up the session so I don't hold anyone over the time. So Ajay asks, really great question. How is it different from Research Rabbit? Really, really great question, because these tools are all super similar in a way. So I'll just jump back to this one on the different tools. So one of these columns might be Research Rabbit. I really can't remember. So it's just fundamentally different. It's not that one is better or worse. You might like Research Rabbit more for certain features, but it's more like what we are trying to do. So both tools are doing literature mapping. Both tools let you like search for the topic or for the paper and find connected papers. Actually, Connected Papers also does that. So they're doing all these things. But what makes Litmaps different is this more combination of features. So especially being able to search on many inputs, being able to filter on results, being able to change the search algorithm, which you can do on the free version. This is only in Litmaps. Being able to monitor the searches and visualize results. Like the combination of all these different things is only in Litmaps. So again, it's not to say one is worse or better. Certainly use which one you like, but they're a different goal. I think this is supposed to be more about the full literature review process and getting you from A to B, whereas that might be focused more on one part of this process. And I'll take this final question here. Can Litmaps be used concurrently with ChatGPT by Peter? Certainly. I would think actually any of the tools, any research tools you're looking at, they can all be used concurrently. It's just a matter of, I think, optimizing your time, because some tools you'll use them and find very similar results. But I would definitely say, for example, one workflow I would play around with in the past is when I'm coming up with the research topic, because this is something that can be hard to do within Litmaps. Litmaps is a literature searching tool, but if you're completely new and you have no idea what research topic you want to focus on, that's something that the literature can't help with. That comes from another place. And so a tool like ChatGPT can be really helpful to brainstorm research topic ideas and to think, hey, I like these topics, I like these subjects, help me think of research topics, and asking about research gaps and getting started. I've done that many times. It's very useful. And the best part is it's a very zero risk, because you're asking, what is a great research graph? What's a great topic? Because you're about to look at the literature anyways. So it's a wonderful way to get started and save a lot of time. And you're still going to verify all of these results yourself. So it's a very safe, nice workflow. So yeah, certainly, I think you should combine whatever tools you like most. Thank you so much for everyone's patience getting through the questions and the presentation. And yeah, hopefully I didn't tire anyone out too much. And we got to
No,
everything.
it was nice, Marina. But there is one more question. I think we should take it. It's like how does LitMaps compare to other literature mapping and review tools?
Great, great. Yes, sorry, just saw that. Wonderful. Thank you for the question, Dr. Shamin. Yeah, I would say similar to the comparison to, I think someone asked about Research Rabbit. So when it comes to other literature mapping tools, it's again boils down to the different features and customizations that we can do with LitMaps. So especially being able to both customize based on like you searching on various inputs and getting recommendations and adding filters on top of this. I think only LitMaps does this, as well as having very customizable maps. So the maps themselves you can edit and change, and you can change the axes, and there's just, I would say overall in a nutshell, much more customization and like interaction when it comes to literature mapping. And when it comes to just reviewing, literature mapping is unique. So there's only a handful of tools that even do that. And review tools in general, like I mentioned at the very beginning, it tends to be either search databases or generated AI tools. And this in-between world of literature mapping is actually a bit small. So there's not a ton of, there's only about 3 tools that really, including us, that do this. So to that degree, I think it's a bit unique, and it's worth doing at least some literature mapping, even if it's not with LitMaps. But then if you're wanting to do it more in depth, do some customization, making maps for the paper, these kinds of things, then LitMaps can be really extra suitable. Great. Well, thank you for the final question. I think that just about sums up the webinar as we're at the time.
Yes, of course.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's 11 and yeah, we are right on time. Marina, it was like amazing information. I believe all the attendees must have got a good understanding of how they can improve their literature review by using LitMaps. But officially, I would request Dr. Neha Modi from GSIMR to deliver a vote of thanks to all the attendees and, of course, LitMaps and Marina.
Thank you, Dr. Shamin. Thank you, Marina. It was such a fantastic session on literature review, and you have given all the questions answers to everyone. But officially, on behalf of Govindram Saxena Institute of Management and Research, I would like to thank you for taking out the time and delivering such a fantastic session on literature review. And I'm sure many of us are from research background, but those who are not from research background, they have to have a very big dive into this literature review. As we all know, literature review is a crucial component to start any research. Without this, you cannot move forward. You have to find the research gaps as well. And this tool, I'm 100% sure by using this tool, they'll definitely find the research gaps, which has to be taken care of. And or if already they have taken the research gap, once again they can use this tool. And you have given so many good tools, Zetoro and other tools which can be used for students or researchers or teachers or research scholars. They can use for this. Thank you very much, Marina. It was seriously very nice session to hear upon our, and though we all are doctorate, but still we find something new every time when we listen to this LitMap session. So those who are very new to research, they'll definitely find it very fruitful to get into this research. And I would like to thank the director of the institute for giving us the opportunity to organize this session, the conveners, Shweta ma'am, Dr. Shweta Sharma, Dr. Shamin Varsi, and all the faculty members. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Marina, for spending your precious time with us and letting us know that maps. Thank you. And all the participants, one more, after this LitMap, we have one more conference on Turnitin. Turnitin, that is on 4th of March. And the date which has already been shared by Dr. Shweta Sharma, 12th of April, is our final conference day. So please be ready and please send your research paper on the IDs and the brochure. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Mhm.
Dr.
Thank you,
Shamin?
Marina. See you. Yeah. So all the attendees, for sure, we will be sending you all the details of the conference on your email IDs as well as the contact numbers which you guys have shared with us. So everything will be shared to you. One last thing is there is a feedback form for this session. A small feedback form link is already there. Marina, it would be great if you post that on the YouTube channel so all the attendees can fill it up. It is there in the chat box. Dr. Shweta Sharma has shared.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, I just posted the form into the YouTube live chat, so now anyone can, yeah,
Okay,
complete.
okay, great. Okay, so thanks everyone. See you soon again in the Turnitin session. Okay, goodbye for now.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you so much
Yes,
for a
yes, thanks so
wonderful
much.
session. Thanks a lot.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm really glad it was useful. Thank you so much for organizing it and letting us participate. Great. Have a good day, everyone. Then I've ended the recording and I can go ahead and exit the Zoom.
Yeah, sure. Okay.